just to finish up before Mark takes over, I just wanted to sort of also end up with talking about what happens in the other end when we've sort of reached this plateau of well-functioning brains. The neuronal loss is very much dependent on whether we manage not to get any degenerative diseases. That there is certainly some neuronal loss in parts of the nervous system. In other parts, there's absolutely no loss as long as we maintain healthy brains. So if we look at the cerebral cortex, as I showed before, there's no detectable neuronal loss even up to the age of 100. It's different if we go to the hippocampus, which is involved in memory processes, and that's probably part of the reason why when you get older you have usually some memory problems. If you get a degenerative disease such as Alzheimer's disease, the degeneration is much, much, much higher, and you can definitely see brain losses or loss of neurons in the brain which are colossal. So definitely up to 50% easy. And this is not trivial. We're going to talk about Alzheimer's disease later on during the course, but this is in the future one of the real almost epidemics that we're definitely going to see. Already now it is such that for the age group above 85 years of age, about 50% suffer from Alzheimer's disease. And the prognosis is that almost all of us here are going to be more than 85, which means that every second of us here are going to get Alzheimer's disease. And this is devastating because it's really serious loss of neuronal function, and that has a huge impact. There are ways of telling Alzheimer's disease from other causes of neuronal loss. So there are specific markers. Unfortunately, all of those, you have to be dead in order to actually see them. So the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease is only really confirmed with 100% certainty when people are dead. There are certain signs, certain symptoms that will sort of give a clue that in all likelihood a person is suffering from Alzheimer's disease, but you can never really be sure. One of the reasons is also that so-called transitory cerebral ischemia is much more frequent than what we have believed in the past. Transitory cerebral ischemia is simply that when you become a little bit older, you have atherosclerosis, which means that there are small what is it called? Problems with blood supply to different parts of the brain, simply because of occlusion of some of the small arteries, so that part of your brain may not get sufficient blood supply for a short period of time, sufficiently to influence your function. And if you have several of these problems, which to a large extent go unnoticed, certainly if it involves parts of the brain which are directly involved in motor or sensory functions, you're likely to notice it, but it might be very transient. So even then, you may only notice that you have a little bit of a motor problem with one hand, or that you have a slight speech problem for a few hours or so, and that's all. But all of these, if they are relatively frequent, can lead to decreased brain function, and that contributes very likely to a large extent to the problem that elderly people have. The good thing about that is that we know what to do about it. It's stop smoking, it's do exercise, eat properly, and so on. So that's curable. The problem is Alzheimer's disease. We still have no clue what actually causes Alzheimer's disease. Well, these are just the different things. When we look at the different sensory functions, there are definitely, in particular, sensory functions that suffer. The vestibular function is very well related to loss of hearing. So it's all about the hair cells, which are in the inner ear. They degenerate. We don't really know why they degenerate, but they are not really apparently equipped to continue functioning for so many years. So what we see is that hearing and vestibular function deteriorate in parallel, which means that elderly subjects have balance problems and hearing problems going hand in hand, which unfortunately also means that they very often fall. And they don't listen when you yell at them to take care. When they fall, they tend to break a leg or break an arm, which means that they become immobilized for a certain amount of time, which means that they get muscle atrophy, which increases the risk for falling another time, and therefore it's sort of an evil cycle which is being started.